What's up YouTube gang? How are we all doing? I hope everybody is well. It has been once again far too long since I spoke to one of you guys. I don't even know why I bother doing the little intro thing at the start that says the date, because realistically all it does is highlight how long it's been since I last made a video. But we are back and it's very, very nice to see you all again. I'm going to take you through a couple of things today. A little bit of a kind of a personal update in terms of where things have been from my side of things. Then we're going to go and train legs. And give you generally a good insight in terms of where life has been over these last couple of months. Now, in terms of my bits to start with, so I am now 4 weeks into a diet, a short diet leading up to the kind of back end of January, start of February time, where, as you're going to be seeing very soon, a very, very exciting move and very, very exciting changes coming into mine and George's life. So 4 weeks into that, I'm roughly about 6 or 7 kilos down from peak body weight at that initial early stage of just feeling so much better, like not having to shovel food down, not feeling super sluggish through the day, like not having all these negative things that are kicking in. So enjoying these stages so far, and also because it's only the early stages, training hasn't suffered or really been affected at all, which makes things a hell of a lot more fun too. Obviously that is all still to come at a bit of a later date, but this diet in total is only going to be 10 weeks, so the intention with it is to essentially get away with still feeling good and almost like not feeling like I'm dieting for the majority of it before getting to that point where inevitably things start to fall off a cliff. So that's where things have been recently. Training has been a fantastic place as well. I was actually ill about 2 or 3 weeks back. This horror cold that seems to have struck down pretty much everyone in the UK knocked me out for about a week, but things have been a very good place since. I had that first week getting back in sessions again after that, and now we're really kind of in the groove of things, moving things very nicely. Body feels fantastic as well, so things are in a very, very good spot. So today's session, as I said, is a lower body. 5 main exercises to run through today. First of which is adductors, which I always like doing an adductor or abductor before any real heavy movements, just to get things moving in my hips especially. Obviously with my job of being an online coach and sitting down for a lot of the day, things are going to tighten up, things are going to get a little bit creaky, so I don't naturally, or don't really want to go from that like concrete state with my lower body into actually trying to move some load, because as soon as I do that, especially kind of things like stretching muscle under load, things are going to get a little bit unhappy. So adductors to get things moving, then into a barbell block pull. I've played around a little bit over the last few months in terms of how best to set up my heavy hinge pattern. Now, I love any kind of heavy pull. It's always been my favourite lift, but the annoying thing is with the size and the height I am, so I'm 6'5" for reference, and about 90% limb, trying to pull from the floor just isn't going to happen because my head ends up being underneath the level of my arse, so I end up passing out after about 3 reps. But at the same time, the gym that I train doesn't have blocks, so I've been playing about with like trying to set things up with like bumper plates and plates on the ground and pulling off those. And to be honest, it just got to a point where it was just too much of a faff just messing around trying to set things up. And also it was knackering when I'd finish my sets hands and take all this stuff down again. So it's moved back to a rack pull because I can just set the rack up and go in there. It's a little bit too high in my body. I kind of compared to where I ideally like it to be, but it's not gonna do any damage. It's not a massive issue. It's not like I'm pulling for like mid-thigh and using about 2 inches of range. So it's adductor, block pull, then into a leg extension. I always like to do a leg extension just to get my knees a little bit warm before I go into any squat or a leg press. Then I have an actual leg press and then a seated leg curl to finish things off. So 5 main components to this session. With weight training is at the minute. Volume is relatively moderate. I always sit on that kind of low to moderate side of things anyway, especially on my heavier compound work and especially any heavy hip hinge, because otherwise I'm just crocked for the entire rest of the session. So it's 2 or 3 working sets for all exercises today. Everything being taken to failure, everything being essentially pushed as hard as I can. And like I said, because of where I'm at within this dieting phase, it's relatively easy for me to do that because it's not a situation where the body's more sensitive, the body's more fragile, and it can't handle it anywhere near as much. So I'm going to make my pre-workout and intra-workout very quickly now as well. With food being a little bit lower now, my intra-workout isn't anywhere near what it used to be. It's just 25 grams of intra-workout carbs, which I'm using dextrose for at the minute, purely because it's about 1/10 the price of what cyclodextrin is, and I actually found my stomach's okay at a smaller dosage, and some creatine at the moment. And then pre-workout I will show in a sec, but that is a product called Dial In trained by JP. Now for me, I don't necessarily need a huge amount of caffeine or like a really high stim pre, because actually that makes me feel worse. All that happens is I get about 20 minutes into my session and I feel really sick and then can't train, which ends up being completely useless and completely redundant. So this one is more of there's caffeine in there, but it's more of a kind of cognitive enhancer, getting my brain fired up. Because I always find that pre-workout, headphones on, I normally wear a cap with these sessions as well, because I'm just complete blinkers on and almost oblivious to things going on around me. And it's also, anyone who comes to talk to me at Ultraflex New York, apologies if I ignore you, it's not, I promise it's not intentional. But I find that gets me in the best headspace to get the most out of these sessions, especially because these are the sessions where I always find I need to be up for them the most. It's different with like upper body sessions or push, something like that, yes, you've got to be up for it, but you're not going to that same place. You're not necessarily pushing things to quite that same level. So that's why I've got things set up this way. So got to make those guys, get the Crocs on, and then it'll be time to drive to the gym. So this is the product that I use. Dialing in, that's going to focus. Yeah, it is. By Train by JP. Just half a scoop because I find any more than that and it's a little bit too much. And because it's nearing or just gone 12 o'clock, too much caffeine. I'm one of these people, if I have too much caffeine, I'm not going to sleep until about 6 p.m. So half a scoop of this ticks me over very nicely. I drink this in the car on the way to the gym because, to be honest, I find I've got to be very particular also with caffeine timings. More so than just in terms of when it is during the day. But I want to be at that place where I'm kind of fully ticking at 100%. At the right point within my session. Obviously that heavy rack pull is going to be that stage now, so don't want to get this in too early. So I said in the car kind of sipping away, I'll be absolutely fine. Give me 10-15 minutes to get through those adductors. This can then kick in and that can be good to go. And a little bit of squash in that intro workout as well, because if you have just dextrose and Kuwait on your own, you're a psychopath. First up, we have adductors. Now, as I mentioned, I always like to have these at the start of my sessions because with sitting down all day with working, they're a really good way to get my hips opened up, and I always like to have a movement like this, so either adduction or abduction at the start of most of my leg sessions, just to get things, as I say, kind of firing a little bit before I then go into my heavy movement. Now, I've got 4 higher rep sets here because I quite like to use these a little bit lighter and just shuttling as much blood in there as possible. Because also a secondary part of doing these as well is when you look at someone's lower body from the front, that kind of sideways, that kind of width illusion will always be more when someone has a decent set of adductors. So I had the majority of the load set here at the shortened range. So this part of the rep, so it's still opening out and it's still stretching me out here, but it's difficult in that middle position I can possibly make it. Then we have what was almost a complete fail because I was going through the warm-up sets on my rack pull, and on my final warm-up set, no, pretty penultimate warm-up set at 190 kilos, which actually didn't feel too bad. I was actually feeling really good going through these. I just got a little tinker and a little tweak in my lower back. So I changed these around instead. So rather than using that slightly kind of greater range, I moved to an RDL where I can control that range a little bit more, pulled the loading back a little bit on here as well, but then added in a pause, you can see at the bottom of that rep, so I can stomach them as difficult as possible. Back felt okay with this. There were 2 working sets, as you can see, and yeah, felt a lot better. But then hopefully when I get around to session next time, I can bring rack pulls back again. That was leg extensions. Now I use these similar to the adductor, a little bit higher rep. I've played about these in the past, but I tend to get some dodgy knees when I do heavier leg extensions and chase load a little bit too much. So a little bit lighter on here, again, just forcing some blood in there. I always do a leg extension before any squat pattern or leg press pattern because it makes my knees feel a lot better. It kind of gets them over that initial almost like creakiness, so then I can get more out of the reps that follow. Cues on here, think about pulling those handles and pulling myself down so I can stay fixed in place. and just making sure full range, with a little bit of a pause at the top position up there. Then we have leg press, or technically a hip press this one is. Now, it's a bit of a funny leg press this one, because I don't know if you can see from the video, but the two legs actually move independent. So legs of the machine, obviously my legs move independently, but the legs of the machine move independently, so you can do this single leg. It's one of those really weird ones where when you do it a little bit lighter, kind of going 3 more sets, it feels awful. It's like doing a pull down when it's too light actually feels a little bit harder. It's the same sort of thing on here, but I really like this setup with sitting up a little bit higher. I find, for me, and with the sitting upright position and the arcing motion that the actual plates move through, I can get a lot more range than I can typically on other leg presses. So this setup for me, I actually really like. 3 working sets on here. Again, a little bit higher rep. It's quite a common theme in my lower body work. I always find my legs, especially my quads, respond better to some higher rep work rather than going super low in that rep bracket. Focusing again, locking myself down into that seat, pulling down into those handles as much range as possible as everything like here is coming back towards me, and then controlling that load back out the bottom. Then last up to finish off my hamstrings, a seated hamstring curl. So the biggest thing with this is using those handles and pushing into them so I can keep myself fixed back in the machine. One of always the biggest things we need to think about with a hamstring curl is keeping our hips fixed in position. We've obviously got the pad on top of my thighs, and if I keep myself fixed enough body-wise, I'm going to be able to lock myself in so I can keep all the load on those hamstrings rather than dancing around. Really good way to finish the session off, especially in that stretch up here within these reps. And then legs were done and dusted after this.